Sleep, the one activity that even stingy, reclusive people want to do it with others. According to a recent Gallup poll, 40% of all American adults are sleep deprived, clocking significantly less than the recommended minimum 7 hours of sleep per night. Getting enough sleep, says Dr. Judith Owens, the director of Center for Pediatric Sleep Disorders at Boston Children's Hospital, is just as important as good nutrition, physical activity, and wearing your seatbelt. But most people hugely underestimate their need for sleep. That's why sleep, says Dr. Michael Roizen, the Chief Wellness Officer of Cleveland Clinic, is our most underrated health habit. A National Sleep Foundation report backs this up. 2/3 of US population is not getting enough sleep on weeknights. In 2011, 32% of people surveyed in the United Kingdom said they had averaged less than 7 hours of sleep a night in the previous 6 months. By 2014, that number had rocketed up to 60%. In 2013, more than a third of Germans, 2/3 of Japanese surveyed said they do not get sufficient sleep on weeknights. The wearable device company Jawbone collects sleep data from thousands of people wearing its UP activity trackers. As a result, we now have a record of the cities that get the least amount of sleep. Tokyo residents sleep a dangerously low 5 hours and 45 minutes a night. Seoul clocks in at 6 hours and 3 minutes. Dubai, 6 hours and 13 minutes. Singapore, 6 hours and 27 minutes. Hong Kong, 6 hours and 29 minutes. Las Vegas, 6 hours and 32 minutes. When you're getting less sleep than Las Vegas, you have a problem. A 2013 study from the University of Chicago found that lower social economic position was associated with poorer subjective sleep quality, increased sleepiness, and/or increased sleep complaints. But the paradox here is that the more challenging our circumstances, the more imperative it is to take whatever steps we can to tap into our resilience to help us withstand and overcome the challenges we face. There's a reason we are told on airplanes to secure your own mask first. Dr. Charles Czeisler, the head of Division of Sleep and Circadian Disorders at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, estimates that in the past 50 years, our sleep on work nights has dropped from 8.5 hours to just under 7. 30% of employed Americans now report getting 6 hours of sleep or less per night, and nearly 70% describe their sleep as insufficient. Getting by on less than 6 hours of sleep is one of the biggest factors in job burnout. Sleep disorders cost Australia more than $5 billion a year in healthcare and indirect costs, and reduction in life quality added costs equivalent to a whopping $31.4 billion a year. A report aptly titled Reawakening Australia linked lack of sleep with lost productivity and driving and workplace accidents. In the United Kingdom, a survey showed that 1 in 5 employees have recently missed work or come in late because of sleep deprivation. The researchers estimated that this is equivalent to a loss of more than 47 million hours of work per year, or a 453 million pounds loss in productivity. And almost a third of all UK employees reported feeling tired every morning. Yet, though awareness is spreading, a few companies have given sleep the priority it deserves, considering its effect on the bottom line. In Canada, 26% of the workforce reported having called in sick because of sleep deprivation, and nearly 2/3 of Canadian adults report feeling tired most of the time. In a Swedish study, untrained participants were asked to look at photos of both sleep-deprived and well-rested people. Participants judged those in sleep-deprived group as less healthy, more tired, and less attractive. An experiment in the United Kingdom tested the effects of sleep deprivation on a group of 30 women, and their skin was analyzed and photographed after they slept for 8 hours and then again after sleeping for 6 hours from 5 nights in a row. Fine lines and wrinkles increased by 45%, blemishes went up by 13%, redness increased by 8%. In other words, we wear our lack of sleep on our faces. A 2015 CNN.com article based on the latest findings by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, provocatively titled Sleep or Die, discussed the connection between lack of sleep and an increased risk of heart attacks, stroke, diabetes, and obesity. In other words, getting enough sleep really is a matter of life and death. A Russian study found that nearly 63% of men who suffered a heart attack also had a sleep disorder. men who had sleep disorder had a risk of heart attack, and that was 2 to 2.6 times higher, and a risk of stroke that was 1.5 to 4 times higher. A Norwegian study determined that people who had trouble falling asleep were involved in 34% of fatal car accidents, and those with symptoms of insomnia are nearly 3 times more likely to die from fatal injury. A lack of melatonin, the hormone that controls our sleep and wake cycles, is linked to higher rates of breast, ovarian, and prostate cancers. In 1982, there were 21,113 deaths due to drunk driving. By 2013, that number had plummeted to just more than 10,000. A key factor was a change in thinking and a desire on the part of citizens, law enforcement, and society to take the problem seriously. The problem of drowsy driving deserves that same attention. According to researchers at the University of Pennsylvania, sleepiness-related motor vehicle crashes have a fatality rate and injury severity level similar to alcohol-related crashes. A report from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that 4.5% of drivers aged 18 to 24 had fallen asleep behind the wheel in the previous month. For those 25 to 34-year-old, the number was 7.2%. And in a National Sleep Foundation poll, 60% of adults admitted to driving while drowsy within the past year. That translates to 168 million people, and those are just the ones who admit to it. Researchers from Harvard Medical School and Brigham and Women's Hospital examined the effects of sleep deprivation on nearly 3,000 first-year residents. The number of hours an intern may work per week is capped at 8 hours, but individual shifts can run more than 24 hours. They found that in months when interns worked 5 or more shifts longer than 24 hours, the fatigue-related adverse effects increased by 700%, and fatigue-related adverse events resulting in patient death increased by 300%. In a Pennsylvania hospital in 2015, a nurse fell asleep while feeding a newborn baby and dropped him on his head. The baby survived but suffered a fractured skull. More than 60% of the drowsy drivers involved in fatal crashes in 2013 were driving trucks, and nearly half of all truckers said in a government survey that they had fallen asleep behind the wheel in the previous year. In 2014 alone, 725 truckers died behind the wheel. Now consider the paradox. Advances in technology have allowed us to pull back the curtains of what's going on while we sleep. But technology is also one of the main reasons our relationship to the most fundamental part of our existence has become so compromised. Apart from technology, the collective delusion that overwork and burnout are the price we must pay in order to succeed is another factor that comes in between us and a good night's sleep. People suffering from sleep deficiency are at a higher risk of chronic health problems like obesity, heart diseases, kidney diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, and stroke. We found that for women, poor sleep is strongly associated with high levels of psychological distress and greater feelings of hostility, depression, and anger, said Edward Suarez, the leading author of the study. In contrast, these feelings were not associated with the same degree of sleep disruption in men. Sleep deprivation is a common problem among the young college student population as well as working professionals. The new sleep be damned approach has kicked in, almost becoming a lifestyle for the current generation over the years. Consequently, and not surprisingly, this leads to insomnia, exhaustion, and frequent burnouts. Very often, we fail to understand that sleep plays a vital role in our physical health and well-being throughout our lives. Studies show that a good night's sleep will help your brain prepare better for the next day. Whether you're learning math, learning to play a piano, learning to drive a car, sleep enhances your learning and problem-solving skills. However, although many of us know about the importance of sleep and its contribution to our physical, mental, and emotional well-being, actually getting enough sleep is harder than we think. How many of us have had conversation amongst ourselves which goes something like, "I'm just not getting enough sleep. I'm so exhausted," or "I don't remember the last time I wasn't tired." What we need to know is that in today's world, the path of least resistance is the path of insufficient sleep. And unless we take specific and deliberate steps to make it a priority in our lives, we won't get the sleep we need.
If you like our channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.